So this video now is going to show you how to use a bit more of EQing and filtering. And we've been seeing this quite a bit already. I introduced you to an equalizer when we were using the bass, and filtering, of course, in the previous video where we were filtering the kick bass, if you remember, together, and also the drums. So I showed you already a filter, what it's doing, but I will just demonstrate a few more things with the filter and show you also when to use an EQ, when to use a filter. So I think I will do this with some audio samples. It's going to be quite clear, I guess. So I will just go here in my browser, go to my sample bank, and I will grab some sounds. I don't know yet exactly what I will do, but it's just to demonstrate more of the filtering, EQing thing. Yeah, let's take stop. Let's take pretty strong snare like this. I think it could do the trick. And I will come in this section where it's a bit empty yet. And I will just drag and drop this sample here, make some sort of a sequence with it. It's a bit less loud. So I don't really care how it sounds yet. It's just it's a demonstration again. You know, you can do this with any sound. And if I duplicate this, let's do a bit of a rhythm, you know, over 1 bar on it. You could do this with a simpler, of course. Actually, select this, Control L, so I have 1 bar loop. You could do this with a simpler the same way, but it's just, you know, it's not the matter of the exercise. Okay, like this, bit of a random rhythm. Okay, if I want to change maybe the velocity a little bit or the volume of some parts of it, take these ones down. Try like this. Maybe I want this one a bit shorter also. Okay, that works for me for what I want to do. Okay, so I start like this, and then I will add a little bit of a delay, so it will make it a bit nicer. Go a bit less loud here. Maybe a bit ping pong delay like this. Okay, so filters versus equalizers. It's pretty much the same thing. You filter out frequencies, you know, like now it's playing the sample, the sound in full, and we're actually going to filter frequencies. But the difference between these two elements, I will show them actually here. It's EQ8. EQ8 for EQing 8 bands. You have your 8 filter bands here. It's totally filters, the same as if we take an auto filter here, which is actually just 1 band and, you know, 1 purpose here. So we use the filter here to actually, most of the time, to tweak. So that means we will want, you know, these things to move over time. While equalizer, it's more filtering to, you know, set it, to change how we want the sound to be, but we choose a setting, change, you know, tones in our frequency range, but we will leave it like this. We can do automations of these guys. We can do everything, of course, but usually an equalizer is more like, okay, I want the sound to be more, you know, more highs, more bass, less bass, whatever, but you will actually leave it like this. While with the filter, we will tweak. Okay, so that's the main difference, I would say. So I will turn this off, and with the EQ, something we do most of the time in mixing that, you know, many times there is a bit of a bass overload. Actually, I'm saying this because kick and bass are the most dominant elements in the bass frequency of our music. So anything else in the track, you know, all the sounds, the synths, the samples you put, all the bass, this area up to 100, 150 hertz, you don't want too much of that because it will make your bass a bit too muddy if you have other bass frequencies that come from other sounds than the kick and the bass, because we want our kick and bass to be clean at all time. So that's the idea. So if you put sounds in your track and you would like to clean it up a little bit, first thing to do, right? Can I delete that? No, I can't, so I can turn them off. First thing you would want to do is to get the first filter here, number 1, change this shape, which is a shelf, so you can, take it up, take it down, but you can change it to a cut or even to a hard cut like this. So that's pretty useful to do on many tracks except the kick and the bass. Okay, so if I solo this one, it may happen a lot of times that even, here there is a frequency analyzer. So when I play the sound, you see all the frequencies moving. And it can happen many times that you don't even hear the mud or like the very low frequencies here, because they're weak and they are not so much there. But, if you put 10 tracks together and the 10 of them have a little bit of something here, and then you mix them all together, then you will add definitely some extra bass frequencies that is unwanted in your mix. So yeah, that's a very basic mixing rule, kind of rule, it's not 100% thing to follow. I don't want to pretend that I know how to mix perfectly either. But yeah, that's a good start, cut your low frequencies on the sounds that you don't want actually to interfere with the kick and the bass. Okay, then we can change the tone of our sound here. Like, let's try. Let's bring it like 4 bands, put a bit more highs, more mids, or less highs, or make a cut somewhere like this. And you have, 2 parameters or actually 3 parameters that is attached to each filter. It's the frequency. It moves left and right in a frequency range. The gain, how much you want the filter to gain up or down, to boost or to attenuate. And then the Q, which is like how strong or narrow the filter is. This is like going to apply this filter on a much wider frequency range, and is going to make a very sort of, small interact on a small part of the frequency. Okay, so this is this is the options that you can have with your filters, and you have to sort of tweak it and figure out what it does. So yeah, you basically, you subtract, you filter things out, and you have the sound that is the original sound that is doing what it does, and then with the EQ, you totally sort of can change the tone aspect of it. So this with my mix, let's see. Okay, it's a bit too loud. So you remember, without the delay, without the EQ, it was pretty harsh, pretty uninteresting, snare, basic, stupid sound, and okay, not that bad actually, but you can go a lot with an EQ, little bit of delay or reverb. This is a very good place to start to make sounds, percussion, loops, and many things like that. Okay, so EQ, you change the settings of the frequency, you filter frequencies, and that is to be set like this. While now I turn this off and I will use the filter. So we already have seen, you can we have one filter, but it's totally meant to be tweaked. So to change, we can make automations with that super easily. Like the low pass, the high pass, or the band pass. Again, this is almost like a little bit of a sigh sound lead, which is not so much of a snare drum anymore. So here, let's activate our automations. Actually, you remember I told you about A to show automations and hide it. It's also in the menu here, somewhere view, automation mode, and you have a shortcut here. I forgot that it existed. So yeah, any of the three ways. So A for me works fine, and then let's do a bit of frequency cutoff change here. I not even want to touch the resonance with the automation. Just, I don't know, play with it. Okay, you can totally play with that. Also have in mind that if you put the filter before the delay, so you know the filter is doing its job here on this part, and then as it sounds here, it's gonna be repeated by the delay. If you put the delay before the filter, so this is going to be repeated and it's going to be affected by the filter. So that, you know, it changes a little bit, not crazily, but it still does change quite a bit. So you filter everything with the delay. Actually, it does change quite a bit on this example. I usually prefer the filter before the delay. Okay, and on top of that, we can still EQ the whole thing. So you see you have pretty much of a total control of the frequency that are coming out from a channel. Whatever you do, you know, and then you can EQ the rest of it, and that is extremely useful and extremely recommended to use all the time. And it's, you know, sometimes you need to clean things. You have a sound, it sounds not so good, but I don't know, maybe I'll give you one example. Back to my samples here, again with a snare drum. Maybe I have to turn this back on to preview. Okay, I will put this snare here. Like, I double my snare. I already have a snare, but I'm going to use one more. Okay, first thing to do with mixing, right, is put it at the right volume. Put it at the volume it sounds right to you. So it's not too loud, not too weak. Okay, and then back to audio effects. Take my EQ8 here, and I can sort of clean or change the feel of my snare with the frequencies. I will put one filter here. This is something to experiment with a lot, you know. I would say there are maybe some rules, you know. I've been asked like, okay, how do you EQ your snare? How do you EQ your kick? How do you EQ your bass? For me, it's really depending on what music, what track you're working on. I have never followed any rule ever. I was just like, okay, I check it, or I compare to one track that I really like, a producer that I really like the sound that is making, and I was like, okay, I would like to try to get something close to what he's doing, and I will try around, you know, some boost frequencies, cut frequencies, and see what it is. But in electronic music in general, you have so many possibilities, and you cannot tell there is a rule for this and for that. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I like to believe. So yeah, just trying to place that snare somewhere in the frequency that is interesting for this example. Or maybe I will not double the actual snare that I have, I will just make a different rhythm with it. So it will actually play like a drum going together with the snare and with the rest of the loop. Maybe not a complete cut here, but a shelf, so I can take the high frequencies down but not cut them completely out. Maybe another filter here. I'm really going by ears, right? I don't follow any technique again. Maybe around there, it's cool. So yeah, there you go. This is filters and EQs. Play with it, use it extensively. I mean, use them a lot. It's really a tool to use all the time. Alright guys, I know it's a bit of a short video, but I think you got most of it, and I am going to see you soon again for the next one.